What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch, making some money, investing in fractional real estate online as usual. Today I'm bringing you another short-term rental that's listed on Mogul. You might not have seen this one if you were on their site today. They actually just sent out a link during the webinar. If you are investing on Mogul, I highly encourage you to jump on that webinar that they do each month. Um, they're very open about answering questions. I had a couple for them today. The person I'm in contact with over there actually sent this property to me a little bit beforehand, so I was able to, come up with one thing I wanted them to clarify for me. Um, but I think that this is, looking at this one after looking at that short-term rental on Lofty yesterday, is just going to be is a really good example of why I speak so highly of Mogul at the moment as far as the properties that they're picking. So this is a short-term rental. It's in Austin, Texas. The purchase price is 1.5 million. We compare that to, and I'm not going to do a comparison the whole thing. I'm going to just go do my normal due diligence and share with you. But I thought the contrast was really stark, so I wanted to just point this out. This is the one that I looked at on the video yesterday. You can, if look at my channel's history, if you want to see this, 1.36 million. So not too much different, right? Same, similar price point. And so this one had gross sales, so gross revenue from Airbnb, 72,000 last year, 85,000 the year before. And depending on, how you looked at it, they were offering a credit so that they could say that it was going to be 124,000, but that credit only lasts for a few months, so this isn't even, you wouldn't even get paid that for the whole year. So when I was talking about the rent to price ratio or the revenue to price ratio being way too low, that's so think about that. All right, 1.3, let's say 1.36 for 80,000 in revenue, top line revenue. We're talking 1.5 here. They're saying 210,000 in projected top line revenue. I say that's what they're saying. I'm going to get into a little bit. I'm going to dig into that number a little bit. I think it may be, it may be as low as 170 or 180, but comparing that to 80, at 1.5 and 180 is, more than double your ratio or around double your ratio that you're getting with 1.36 and 80. Did I say? So let me back up. 1.5 and 180 is almost double or somewhere around double the revenue to price ratio that you're getting at that 1.36 and 80,000. I think I said that right the first time, but maybe not. So it's an important enough point that I wanted to clarify it. So, ignoring everything else about both properties, ignoring the fact, which market you think is a better market or anything. I mean, you're just getting twice as many dollars in top line revenue for every dollar that you're investing, at least twice as much. And if you believe they're 210, then it's even better, right? Um, that's why when I see ones like this and they're saying, "Oh, we're going to give you this rental yield," I don't believe this yield in any sort of, in any sort of long-term hold. I don't believe that yield's going to continue to exist because just the fundamentals of the property are so much weaker than what I'd expect them to be for a good investment property that's an STR. Sorry, I'm just interrupting this video for a minute because, as always, I screwed up. I forgot to say some stuff until the end. Please like and subscribe. Also, I do have links to Mogul and to several other sites that I'm invested on in the description to this video. So if you're not on there yet, you can check them out with that. And they do give you some free credits if you sign up using that link. We also have a Discord link to just a generic fractional real estate investor, Discord for us to talk about any of these properties. That's all I wanted to make sure. I always forget to do that till the end, and I screw it up. And so now we're just back to it. I think they did a lot of things right. There's a couple things I want to call out about this before. But first, I want to tell I think I've mentioned a few times I like Austin a lot. Um, the number one reason is this, right? Like a lot of people think, oh, it's a bubble market from COVID, and That is true, right? They had and I'll show you that in a second, huge bubble pricing from COVID. But if you look at the long-term growth rate, this isn't just COVID-driven growth, right? I mean, you had in the early 2000s, or from the 90s to 2000, you had 40%, over 40%, then 20%, then 20% again. Looks like we're still growing now, with a 2023 estimate. Um, so regardless of the fact that it really popped during the COVID period, um, this long-term growth trend is why I'm a big fan of a lot of Texas cities, and Austin is one of them. Now, Austin behaves a lot differently than say San Antonio, which is my primary market, but it is still, uh, it's one that I like a lot. But you can see, like, if you look at our price trend, this is the city in general, the Zillow home price trend. Yeah, that was a pretty, I mean, this is basically a straight up line. And during this time here in San Antonio, I had so many investors from Austin coming here because they said we just got bid out of that market, right? So yes, I mean prices went nuts, and they've come back down quite a bit. And then I also looked at our zip code that this property's in, and they did. It was even sharper because this is like downtown basically, or this is in the city, not just the whole city. Um, Zillow still forecasts a slight decrease in this zip code, where they have it flat for the city as a whole over the next year. Whether or not we're done or not, I'm not sure. If this were, a short-term hold for me, I'd be worried about it. But this is something I'm buying for the long term, and so this is the trend I really care about, right? And speaking of which, if it's short term or not, they did talk a little bit more about what their secondary trading is going to look like. And it isn't going to be a peer to peer platform. It's going to be, they're going to have a market maker, that's somebody that comes in and actually provides liquidity. And they're doing that because they don't want to have these wild price swings that we have on, say, Lofty, for example. Um, I think that's good and bad, right? It's good for anybody who actually needs the liquidity to get out. It's probably going to cost you a little something, but it's not going to, you're not going to take this 40% loss for no reason. Um, on the flip side, it's terrible for me because I can't go in and buy it at a 40% discount, right? So, they gave a little bit more clarity on that. I think they said second quarter of next year is when they really expect that to happen. But it seems like it's still pretty uncertain. I'm still buying all of these with the intent that I'm going to be holding them, 5 to 7 years, sometimes maybe even longer. If they're able to operate them, and let me show you their analysis tab. A large chunk of the return I'm expecting to come from the cash flow, not from the appreciation anyway. They do model a cash out refinance on this one in year four. I really don't love that they're doing that on all these now. That bumps it up to the 16%. But if we shut that off, but I do like that they let you manipulate all this stuff, right? If we shut that off, I mean, you're still talking about 14% return, but they're talking about average 3.5% appreciation over the holding period. If the holding period was 2 years, I'd say no way. If it's 10, I feel pretty good about that. It's a market that has continued to grow for a very long time, and I can get on board with that. But really, and I think I've talked about this quite a bit. I'm not necessarily, uh, any of this stuff is really, getting into the prediction business. I don't really love. I'm looking at, okay, what is my cash on cash return on this, and then how do I expect this market to do relative to other markets that we're looking at, right? Like all the markets could stay down next year, over time, but in the long run, which markets do you think are going to perform the best? And for me, it's fast growing markets that are landlord friendly, business friendly, like all the reasons that I like a lot of the Texas property or Texas cities, and um, a number of other ones as well. But so I like the market. I'm not necessarily tied to, is this going to be 14%, or am I going to actually hit 16 because we do a refinance in year four. Oh, oh yeah, that was amortizing. This is the refinance button. Then that gets us to their 16. They're trying to project specific returns. And I think there's a good argument to be made for sometime in the next 4 years being able to refinance and take a little cash out and do that. But at the same time, you might not be able to. So I don't love that they're doing this. We've talked about that a few times already. But I don't think it's the end of the world. I really am just trying to pick markets that I really like, and they're doing that. They're picking a lot of markets that I like, and I want to see a decent yield. That the property can actually support itself, right? Like, I mean, this yield is covering their debt very handily. Um, that's what I want to see. So, all right, let's see. Talked about Austin, talked about those prices. One thing, this is, relatively new construction built in 2023. So it is, I think it's got that going for it. You know what? I don't even think I went through the pictures. It's a great looking property. It just has a small pool. They call that just a plunge pool. Um, this is just in the garage. They have it set up as a game room. It's not a real over the top short-term rental, but it's a very nice one. It's got, the right amenity as far as a nice little pool, and the location is why I expect this one to do really well. Um, it is again, I think, comparing it mentally to the Axelrod, I don't think it's quite as good as that property. Although I do, a lot of people are going to prefer this because it's a 2023 build, right? So like our repair and maintenance and capex should not be nearly what it is on some of the older properties. I mean, that's again like comparing this one to the one yesterday. Like, I mean, it's just so different, right? I mean, it's very much different. But so one of the things when they built this, so I have MLS access in this market. Let's see, and I'm on the client friendly view, so you're not going to see anything that you're not supposed to. One of the things that I thought was interesting is this shows up as a condo. And you might say, well, that doesn't look like a condo, right? And this confuses a lot of people. A condo is just a form of legal ownership or title. It's not. It doesn't have to be a certain type of architecture, right? And so we've started to get these situations where um, it's just easier to build. So it looks like they built two properties on this lot, or maybe this one existed and they just cut this off and built this. I'm not really sure which they did. Um, because this was a couple years ago. This is the person, probably who sold it to the current owner. Um, but it's easier to just separate these properties using condo docs than it is to separate them, to go through the city and, legally separate the parcels. And so I think that that's why they did this here. I've actually seen this quite a bit near our downtown here in San Antonio. Um, one, I'm not sure, it may give them some ability, to get around some of the lot line restrictions and whatnot. I'm actually not sure if that's true. But I have seen it just a whole bunch, and they're usually when they're putting more properties on the lot than I'd expect, and they're not cutting up the lots, right? And so, even though it's a quote unquote condo, it is a freestanding property. You're not like attached to another building, as far as I could tell. Not based on any of the pictures. Um, or the description or when I looked at it. And I looked up in the Travis County appraisal district. It's just if you ever want to look at that, it's just this prodigycad.com, Travis dot that. But I always just Google Travis count. I just do Travis CAD and I find it. But on here you can see it's listed as Unit One, and that's why. But it does say this is the legal description. It's this street condominiums, and it's a 60% interest in the um, common areas, which I don't even know that there are actual common areas, but they just have to set those up. It's a weird thing. So if you're not comfortable with that, right? It's not like fee simple ownership of the land. Let me see. I didn't actually see if. Oh yeah, I don't remember. Oh, what did I do? Where'd that go? Oh, there we go. Um, Oh, they did, yeah. So it's on our condominium contract. I know I pulled this up and I didn't even notice what it was on. You know, we have in Texas, the Trek forms are great compared to a lot of other places, and they have, you know, we have this separate condo one. So it is, you know, they're not this isn't being hidden at all. You know, like Mogul understands that's what they're buying, but they also don't like they're not really making that obvious when they're describing it, right? But it is because the average individual who's not in the real estate business, to call this a condo just kind of is confusing, right? Because then you think, oh, am I just owning a piece of this building? But that's not the situation here. So, you know, I just want to. Hopefully, I didn't just make that more confusing. I should have just let you believe it's just the whole house, but it's not, right? The actual ownership that we're getting is a little bit different. You know, whether sometimes that can affect our financing a little bit. I don't really think that it will, where it's just a two. It appears to be just a two-unit condo. I actually couldn't find the other one, but where it's unit one and then you own, you know, 60% of the common areas, which I didn't. I'm not getting that from here. I found that somewhere else. Um, I don't know. I don't want to harp on it too long, but it is something that if you're concerned about your type of ownership, you might want to look into it a little bit and really understand what it is that you're getting. Um, I actually didn't catch this until after the webinar, so I didn't ask him about it. But for me, you know, to be perfectly frank, like this would not affect me much at all, provided you know, it didn't affect my financing to a point that it made it not work. Um, I don't really think, you know, I don't think it's going to be a huge deal on your resale because it's not as if. So sometimes you see these, and it is, you know, 20 brand new homes and they're all set up as condo, you know, the ownership structure is all condos. And in those, I get a little bit worried because you start to run into um, problems with financing them and, you know, having too many investor owners and whatnot. But with these ones, I don't think that's going to be, I don't think you're going to run into the same problem. I'm not sure. Like I said, I mean, just like always, you know, just because I invest in some of these doesn't mean that you should. You want to do your own due diligence. Um, you know, just because I said this one's better than the one on Lofty doesn't mean that that's right for you, right? I mean, like, I'm always just trying to share my knowledge and experience and the way I'm looking at these properties. But I want you to make your own decision. That's why, and I really would like to, you know, get some discussion going in the comments or on the Discord. Like, do you have a problem with this being a condo? Have you ever run into an issue owning condos that are like this, right? Where it's a freestanding home, but it happens to be under a condo ownership regime. Um, I'm not aware of any issues that it really causes, other than sometimes, you know, with the lender. Um, but anyway, I did want to point it out because I think that it's, you know, it's one reason to be a tiny bit less excited about this one than I was already. Let's see. It looked on the flood map. You know, I was perfectly fine with this. Again, you want to, you know, be checking those things on your own. I looked at the, you know, the FEMA National Risk Index. Especially when you see it like this and it's really dark just where it's very populated and it's not so dark everywhere else. It gives you a good idea of the incidence of, you know, how often some of these things happen. But you know, when I was looking at this, it's very similar to San Antonio. The things like heat waves, ice storms. It looks like they get a lot of hail just like we do. That's our biggest problem. You know, they do have tornadoes, you know, wildfires and winter weather. Like none of these things surprise me. I don't think, you know, nothing that I saw going through this made me hesitant to buy this. But again, you know, you want to dig into any of that. Um, you know, I know a couple of you have given me some good comments about stuff like this that I hadn't really thought much about or that I wasn't too worried about and made me think twice in some markets. So I'm curious if anyone has any thoughts. Um, I don't think that part of Austin has a history of any real issues, but I'd be interested to hear it. The spot crime map, this is definitely so like if you know they it did something kind of weird here. It gave me a real big area, but in that larger area, this is all in the same day. And so I don't know. I like this map because of the way that it's presented, but when it starts to act a little weird like that, it makes me want to start to look at some other data too. And maybe, well, you know, let me know what is your favorite crime data. Um, platform to look at. I thought it was good that there was nothing in this immediate area. I mean, you have to go a couple blocks over in any direction before anything happened. Doesn't mean it's perfectly safe, but it made me feel a little bit better than when I'm zoomed out here. And like if we come over here, I think that's a much different story, right? So, um, I don't know. I was okay with this, and I know Austin, you're going to have in a lot of parts of town, you're going to run into crime. Um, People still do really well with short-term rentals there, right? People just, if you're going to stay by downtown Austin, you're going, there's a certain level of that you're going to expect, right? Um, I did, one of the things, so this was listed, I mentioned this, right? I had the listing. It's listed at 150 or 1.599. They actually got it at 1.5. And so, almost $100,000 off of the asking price. I believe with some, oh, we can look. Or did I leave that up? No, I closed. Oh no, I left it up. So we can see if they have any closing credits too. Usually in our forms, well, it's actually the condo form is, yeah, it's the same. Okay, so no closing credits on here. That's interesting. Um, is this another off-market deal, or are they not? Oh, one more page down. Oh, when I went too far. Okay, and they are getting they're broke. So, the way our fees work, I was trying to see, are they paying a buyer's agent? And it looks like they are. But this is where you normally see any credits from the seller. And, they didn't provide any, but they did give a fairly substantial. Sorry about that. I got logged out and it took me a minute to get back in, so I just cut that out. But yeah, I was just saying, we got a substantial discount from the asking price. When you look at this on Zillow, their estimate was 1.543. So it looks like they kind of believe there's some kind of discount. Maybe not, maybe the 1.599 was too high, but 1.5 is probably a good deal. Um, you know, I went through some of the other comps that they provided, and they do a little bit cherry pick these, but I felt pretty good about what they were doing. You know, it was on the market for almost 2 months, I think, and so one, obviously 1.6 is too much, but I like the discounts they're getting, especially considering they're getting all the furniture with it. They're getting, oh, one more thing. There's $50,000 in bookings that are going to get turned over to them. So they already have a lot of bookings, going forward. Um, and Zillow's not taking any of that into account. And so, it's not extravagant furniture, but they said they spent $75,000 getting it set up, and that's really in line with what a lot of my clients are paying to do that, right? I mean, usually that's buying the furniture, but also paying like a designer or someone to do that for you. Get it set up, or there's some third parties that provide that service. So, I'm pretty happy with what they're buying it for. You remember they do always have their fee baked in, so um, but it's their return calculations are. Oh man, I'm logged out of this too. They're Yeah, this is just going straight into it though. Their return calculations are typically taking that into account. I don't know why I did that. I don't usually get logged out of this. There we go. Or they do take that into account, right? So it is, they bake it into all of the numbers. So I feel pretty good about that. But what I wanted to dig into a little bit was, their projections. And so this is the only thing that I really took issue with. And I asked them about it, and they answered it, but I wasn't 100% sure that this was the right answer. So they're projecting, $210,000 in top line revenue year one. And their note on this says, um, the Johnson it's an operating in Airbnb with over a year of verified actual, operating actuals performing above starting rents. So that says that their actuals are above this, that they have on record. when I look at the listing for the property on the MLS, they mentioned that it was 190,000 in gross revenue. When I asked about this, he mentioned that this number is actually net of fees that they were charging, so that this isn't actually gross revenue. Um, do agents screw this up all the time? They do, right? Like, so, a lot of times you'll see stuff listed as gross that's net, or net that's gross. So I believe, especially if this is what came to them, through their manager, then that seems like gross revenue, because then they take their expenses out of it. So I think that's believable. But it worries me a little, right? Like, I wish that this wasn't here, because it makes me question the 210 number a little bit. And then on top of that, when I look at AirDNA, um, I found this exact property, and it only had 304 days available last year, 170,000 in revenue. But if you look at this, it looks like maybe what they did is they took it off the market, um, once they listed it for sale, which I think is a best practice. Like, I don't like to sell an STR with guests in it. It makes it really difficult to sell. You're rarely getting top dollar. But so it messes with these numbers a little bit. And so, maybe if they, and you can't use AirDNA to get further back, and it gives you a revenue potential, but it's weird to think that, in your other 61 days, 2 whole months, that you're only getting another $17,000. So I don't know. I mean, this makes me a little worried, that the 210 is not a real number, even though they say it's based on actuals. But I mean, I did ask the question. That is what they said, that number just wasn't net of fees, even though it's said, or was net of fees, even though it said it was gross. Um, and then what else? Oh, but then, they list. Oh, it's on their other tab. I really wish they would just combine all this together. But I know not everybody looks at the analysis tab, right? A lot of people are just getting in here, clicking on this and that. You can see they pulled a bunch of other, you know, Airbnb properties that they think are better representative, comps, and they're all significantly higher than that 210. And I spent a little bit of time digging around, and you can definitely find ones that are significantly worse. But I did find some like that were much higher as well. You have to kind of cast a little bit wider net, but I find that when you have these, like, really, it's a brand new property, it's got a pool, it's sort of nicer finishes, nicer design. Like, you know, I, I I believe that they'll hit that number. Um, I just I just wish that, that doubt wasn't cast in there, because they're saying it's actual, and the listing agent, but, like I said, I mean, the agent that listed this may have just said, or the person that's selling it might have just said, yeah, that's my gross revenue. That's what I collect, and then I pay my fees out of there. But really, that's after the Airbnb fees already, and maybe even after their management fees, right? If the third party's handling it, or a co-host or something, or if they're, I mean, there's any number of ways that could be, um, the true story, and it is what he said. On the webinar, when I asked that specific question, he said, yeah, it's just that it's not net of fees, or that it is net of fees, but, you know, so I don't know. I like things to be really clear, and, but so that's honestly the only thing. The condo issue a tiny bit. The fact that I don't know 100% that I feel good about this number. But so one thing in their bear case, they mess up a lot of things, but they do a 180 rental income. And I felt, after digging around on AirDNA, I felt really good about 180 with that property compared to a lot of others. And, you're still getting a 5.1 cash on cash return. When you do their bear case, they change a whole bunch of other stuff too. Um, but I thought it was good that that's the number they're using, is that 180. And I think I've mentioned this a few times too. I don't necessarily think their bear case is a true bear case. Like, this could go to negative. Like, I mean, you're never going to have a property like this that doesn't have some chance of losing money. And so, if you think that the down, the worst, or, and I guess they're saying bear case, not worst case, right? So, I don't hate it, but I'd like it if they were a little more negative in their bear cases. Um, their bull case gets a little bit better too. But one of the things that I do really like that you can play around with these tools a lot. You can change a lot of the assumptions. You can't change all of them. I was trying to dig in and see if I could just change their actual, these numbers, but I can't, and that was unfortunate. Um, But, I mean, I think not everybody is spending the time on this that I am. This is one I think, again, I'm going to buy a little piece of it. I'm not going to buy a big piece. One, just because it seems like they're putting out properties at a much faster clip now. I think they mentioned they have another one coming up soon, or a couple. I think they have a couple in the works. And so until I feel better, until like I think they're picking the best properties on average compared to every other platform that we're looking at right now. Like, I mean, that's just that's my general feeling. I don't think everyone's a perfect winner, but I think if you compare these properties on average to the properties on any other platform, I think they're really killing it. And and it makes sense because that is their skill set, right? Like the guy Joey is, that's what he did at Goldman Sachs was find residential investment properties. Um, I don't want to put too much cash to play into play here because one, I don't know how well are they actually going to be able to operate these. I mean, they've been doing it for 3 years. They said, it looks like last year was really the first year that a dividend was paid, or maybe it was the year before now. Maybe it was 2023. But on some of the properties. So even though they've been working on it a while, it's still very new. And so, unless I just really love them, I think I'm just going to buy little pieces of each of them. This is one I like it quite a bit. I mean, I think there's a couple things that worry me a little bit, and it does seem like their yields might be trending down a tiny bit compared to some of the I think whenever you step up your volume, it's going to be it's easier to find one amazing deal than 10, right? Even if you have 10 times the staff, it's still not as easy to find 10 amazing deals because you're dealing with the market, right? Like there's just certain low hanging fruit out there. Um, but I think they're really picking properties that have good that are, appear to have good fundamental, like, revenue potential for the price of the property. So I don't know. I'm gonna pick up a little piece of this one. Let me know in the comments or in the Discord if you plan to. I did forget until the end today, but please like and subscribe. If you haven't already, sign up for the Discord. We're just talking about fractional real estate investing. Any of the platforms. Really, any discussion that you want to have in relationship to that, that's what we're doing there. And I also have links to all the sites that I'm invested on. Um, yeah, I think that's it. Until next time, I'm going to just keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.